Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful occasion today. My name is Reverend Mbaba Henry Odun Lebron. I am an interfaith minister as well as a Yoruba Lukumi priest. I am honored to be here, and I'm honored that so many of you today have taken the time to be here. I just want you to just close your eyes for a minute, just to sort of relax for a second and just concentrate on your breath. Take a deep breath and relax. Just relax so that we can let go of the day and be in the now, presently here at this moment. One more breath. And open your eyes, relaxing. Before we begin to give honor to the Creator, we must give honor to the native people of this land. We must give honor for all that was taught by them to this continent called the Turtle Continent by native people. We're going to commence by saluting and giving salutations to the east, to the north, to the south, and to the west, to Father Sky, to Mother Earth, and to all the spirits of this land that have supported all of us through all these years. I will now start a libation. A libation is a way of honoring the ancestors through the African traditions by pouring water or sometimes spirits on the ground to honor. We use water because water is the most simplest element and the highest conduit and way of communing with God. If we have nothing in the world to give God as an offering, water is always available. Omi tutu, fresh water. Ile tutu, freshen this home. Ona tutu, freshen our road. Ariku babawa, freshen our ancestors. Ariku mojuba olofi, blessing be of God the Creator. Mojuba Olodumare, blessing be of the female aspect of the Creator. Mojuba Sheda, Mojuba Koda, blessing be to those teachers that came before us. Mojuba Babatobi, blessing be to those mothers and fathers who came before us. Moyuba Bobo Egungun, blessing be to all the ancestors that made our way here and paved the path for us to be here. But we have to remember how we all got here. It wasn't by coincidence, but it was by the effort of our ancestors that made it, in their efforts, made it happen that we are able to enjoy this place, this now moment. Moyuba Orisha, blessing be to the divinities that God has as emissaries to take care of all of us. And Moyuba, Bobo, Baba Locha Iya Locha Kekowaile, blessings be to all the highest priest and all of the priests who take care of the land, take care of the traditions, and take care of all of us. Ashe. And we're going to do an affirmative prayer. God, you are love. You are source. For you are the beginning of everything. You are the sun beaming in our faces, the gentle breeze whispering in our ears, a mother's touch. You are omnipresence. We see you in our brother and sisters' faces, on the oceans, rivers, streams, trees, and landforms. We are the constant state of awe at your magnificence. You are wisdom, intelligence. You are the all in all. We know that you are in us and express yourself as us. We dwell on this divine intelligence. We breathe and live in your truth. Our sister, Alice Walker, is your channel of pure expression and genius. She has a loving relationship with you, God, and you respond to her unconditionally. God, we know that this book entitled Taking the Arrow Out of Your Heart is your creation. It will assist us in all our personal transformation and the understanding of others, our community, and ourselves. We know that these poems will inspire us all, support and heal us in all aspects of our lives. We are grateful to you, God, our ancestors and divinities, for all that you have and continue to do for us, for the opportunity to share this evening in support and solidarity with our sister, Alice Walker. We anticipate with much joy in our hearts the pure success of this book and the pleasure we will have reading this insightful and inspiring words. God, we are so grateful for you. We are so thankful for what you have done to us all in your love. Thank you, God. With much gratitude today, we give you thanks. We ask you to bless us. And with this, I release these words in much thankfulness, gratitude, Ashe, Amen.
I have listened to you and Lucille my whole life. Sometimes when I have had the blues, I have listened to you and thought, it can't be all that bad. I'm on this planet while he is too, and he is singing. It's hard to take this leaving of us that you've done, and yet how tired, how exhausted you must be singing to us all those years. And what did you eat, I ponder? Pondering your portliness, especially in the early days at the back door of how many of those respectable establishments. You know that word, irrepressible? That describes the joy and pain of our resistance to dullness, giving up, wearing out. This is what I've thought of you. Who knew what kept you going, except the spirit that refused to surrender despair? When she was 3 or 4, I took my daughter to hear you sing in Mississippi. You were amazing. My favorite word and observation about life. And you, large and dark and radiant, with your special brand of unstoppable joy, kissed her with warm delight cheek and smiled at her father and me, outlaws in the land, and we stood in awe. This painting by Gerard Van Dyke. I encountered one day in her studio in Amsterdam. You were on one easel, Billie Holiday on another. I chose Billie, but the painting of you never left my heart. 12 years later or something like that, I called Van Dyke, and she remembered perfectly how much I wanted you. Guess what, she said. When I said at last I can afford that green BB, I still have it. And so you came across the ocean, across the continent, across my living room to my rest where I can see you every day. The greenness of your skin testifying a word you loved. To your supreme earthliness, thank you for being here while I am here. While we are here, you radiant soul. Thank you for your guidance, truth, honesty, passion, sincerity, most importantly, most beautiful of all, your charm I found. Thank you for your special darkness that illuminates both shadow and light, that magic. All those days and nights on the road, you gave all you had, your ways, all of your dying wealthy. Thank you for teaching. Thank you for reaching. Thank you. 'Cause we did not have money for fancy futon sittings with doctors who had speck-filled eyelids. See, our therapy sessions resided in the verses of the persons whose rhymes meant a connection, which meant a weapon, which meant assault in my possession. See, my position was to listen even if the red lines got bested. See, my position was to listen even if my mind was messed up. Every woman wonders where her secret lies. See, I said, my position was to listen even if I was destined. This tomboy who loved rap and like girls that like rap, hated tight curls, loved skull caps and basketball. Shaved baby dolls, toy cars, and all that. But what can you call that when every sample of a woman was a damsel or a damn hoe or a dusty trophy waiting at the lip of a mantle? See, and that's where feminism dismantled rap for me. No room to exit the chimneys, no heat, but plenty room to consume hate and plenty more for envy. Still, our stomachs were empty. With the fingertips at the radio, so I let the statistics tempt me to write this just in the 5th grade, y'all. Listen. I'm the best of the dress-ups. I'm the mess in your chest up. I leave a hole in your vest. Look like spatters of ketchup. And while my statuses go up, you must be quicker to lesson. I was counting my stacks, and you were over there stressing. I'm secure with my own. While you constantly checking, taking women on your deck so they can kiss on your neck. And yo, she dogging you, dude. Thought that you would expect it. Yo, use a weenie, beanie, baby. Thought that you would expect it. Hey, yo, the meta, the meaner in him. Also the queen of bringing hits like Serena, waking Maggie the dreamer. And I'm the girl you want to be with, no Victoria's Secrets. Looking for a girl to sleep with and planning to keep it. And y'all can keep that. Yeah. Because in the 5th grade, that was my second rap. I can't believe I got sucked in that, so I had to find my way, and naturally, I second that. South side to them section cats, North 25 back to Stuyvesant, down the hill back to Carteret, and on Hermitage. On Hermitage. That's where Little Benny Wop and Sean Carter met. Not only to give me a blank roadmap, but to give me a portrait to portray the poor kids to see the streets of something else besides a trap, so I have no choice but to use this voice. I get nasty with my raps because it allows smooth roughness to help fill voice to speak to little girls who has little interest in boys other than to compete. Where running the streets could possibly only mean allowing your play sneakers and the gravel to meet until the fast one touches the finish line, disguised as 2 hands. Both hands. That was our vision of a resurrection. Forward moving was the only sign of perfection, and keeping it real was the only sign of perfection, so no, sir. We did not have money to talk to someone who got paid to listen. Our only counsel hugged our ears and exchanged hardship for lyrical prescriptions, so we are the doctors and the clients, and we fulfill every requirement between those 2 spectrums. More than PhD qualified, so when a new guy comes, we don't use our eyes to inspect them. No, we dap them, we headphone, mic check them, and allow our ears to accept or reject them. Protecting our homes with deadly musical weapons is not only what's expected. It's the B-side of the record when the tables are turned. It's the chills that we feel after the CD gets burned, after the record gets dropped to your seat. This seat is not equipped for this bodily detox, so give me a Dougie Fresh beatbox or a Pete Rock track. Give me the chills on the hill as if Lauren was back. Put Public Enemy in front of me so I can feel pro-black no matter the fact. You can sit down and see the crowd react, see the gospel detach, see my bodily and be rap, ventress of God. Yahweh, 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 oh Yahweh, you know I love you, no one above you, will you hold me tight, yeah, yeah, because at nighttime, when I lie in my pillow, I cry every morning. The smile is a warning. The devil don't want it. Yahweh, 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 oh Yahweh, you know I love you, no one above you, will you hold me tight? yeah, yeah. Because at nighttime, if I cry in my pillow, I smile every morning. The child is a warning. The devil don't want it.
We are grateful that you've decided to spend your Friday night with us as we all celebrate the release of Alice Walker's newest book of poems, Taking the Arrow Out of the Heart. As you may know, the book is presented in both English and in Spanish, and this timely collection of nearly 70 works bears witness to our troubled political moment while chronicling a life well lived. It is such a blessing that Alice Walker sincerely wants us to celebrate life and honor the divine within ourselves. It's really a blessing, right? She really cares. She really cares about us. Tonight's program has been presented in partnership with Atria Books, which is an imprint of Simon Schuster. And I want to acknowledge Yona de Mones and Milena Brown. So if we could please give them a hand. They've been wonderful partners. They're continuously supporting Black women in presenting their best works, and we need fierce supporters like them in our lives. I have this bouquet of flowers for Yona. She's struggled with cancer, actually, and has been going through chemotherapy all summer as we've been planning this beautiful offering, yes, for Miss Walker, but also for all of you. So I really want to acknowledge and thank you for your leadership and your continued support, not only of me, but of all the beautiful Black women, Black girls that are going to feel empowered and inspired and motivated to create because you're putting our work out in the world. So thank you so much. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's conversation between the brilliant and kind Alice Walker and scholar, writer, and activist Salamisha Tillett. Salamisha Tillett is the Henry Rutgers Professor of African American and African Studies and Creative Writing Programs at Rutgers University, Newark, and the founding director of the New Art School Justice Initiative at Express Newark. She's also a regular critic for the New York Times. She is the author of Sites of Slavery, Citizenship and Racial Democracy in Post-Civil Rights America, and is currently working on 2 book projects, In Search of the Color Purple with Abrams Press, and All the Rays, Mississippi Goddamn, and the World Nina Simone Made with Eco Books. In 2003, her and her sister co-founded A Long Walk Home, a Chicago-based nonprofit that uses art to empower young people and end violence against girls and women, and is subject to the writer of Story of a Rape Survivor, multimedia performance. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce you to Salamisha.
So I have the good fortune of being in conversation with Alice Walker this evening, and I would like to invite you to the stage. Oh, my. Not only have I had the good fortune of being in conversation with Miss Alice Walker this evening, but a couple of weeks ago, my sister and I took the voyage to Northern California, and I had the opportunity of spending 2 glorious days with you. And there's something you said that day that I held on to, and that, you know, sometimes you don't have to spend, and it's also in your book here in terms of your relationship to your translator, that you don't have to spend a lot of time with someone for them to have a meaningful impact. So I wasn't sure if I'd ever see you again, so I was like holding on to that. And now that I have this gift, I feel so blessed. And so there's something for me as an avid reader of your work as a student of your work and as someone who's been deeply molded by your politics and your poetry, and that when I met you, I didn't realize that your starting place is as a healer. I thought of you as a writer and an activist. And it seems kind of silly because obviously your work is deeply about healing, but I felt that energy so profoundly when I was with you. And so that brings me to the title of this collection of poetry. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to read it yet, Alice writes in the introduction that the original title was The Long Road Home, inspired by the poem that you have here about Muhammad Ali, and that you were invited to do a lecture at a university, and you changed the title of the book as a result. And so here you say that, but life will change course, and so you're invited to give this talk. And at that talk, you talk to them about how that arrow many feel in their hearts is not theirs alone. Remind them it is worthwhile to train to learn how to remove it. So what do you mean by this arrow, this wound that many of us have, and this journey of taking it out? It's a metaphor, but obviously it changed the course of the book for you in many ways.
Well, when I was very deeply in love with someone and the relationship ended, I was in incredible pain. This is leading you from the romantic angle. We're going to get to the other angle. But I was very hurt, and the pain, I don't know how many of you have had this kind of suffering. Oh. That's what I thought. No matter what you do, it's just there. You wake up in the morning, it's there. You go to bed at night, it's there. Well, anyway, this went on for far too long, and I really was at the end of my wits. And then just by chance, someone brought a tape by Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, called Awakening Compassion. And she was talking about how part of our problem with our suffering is that we're shot in the heart with an arrow, not just a romantic one or one, where you're having a terrible time with someone. But in any case, you're suffering. But instead of actually taking the arrow out or learning how to take it out, you stand there and you scream at the person who shot you. Mm-hmm. Ooh. And what a waste of time that turns out to be. Mm-hmm. So what is important to do is to learn how to take it out. Whoever shot you, they're going to be somewhere, doing whatever they do, and not even thinking about how much pain you're in. So you might as well just not even be concerned about them. So part of the practice is founded in meditation, which I hope a lot of you do, because in this period, it is what will help you a lot. And a very quick way of describing one of the ways that this particular kind of meditation that she taught me as I was lying there for a full year suffering. Imagine that this room is completely filled with very hot, heavy, dark, we had big fires in Mendocino where I live, so I'm describing basically what I saw out of my window. But that kind of smoke where you can't even hardly breathe. But imagine that in this room. This room is full of that smoke. And you need to be able to inhale all of it. You need to sit up straight and draw it, all of it, every corner of it that's in here, wherever it is. You take that into your body. And as you're doing that, you imagine that you are taking in, all the weight of, the world and your own suffering and whatever is really plaguing you. And then you hold it just for a minute, and then on the out-breath, you decide, right before you let it go, you decide, what would you rather have? This is what we got. We got floods, we got earthquakes, we got tsunamis, we got storms. We have, presidency. But what would you rather have, And so you conjure that. And for me, it is being on the beach. I love the ocean. And you breathe that out. But the catch here is that you breathe it out, whatever it is that you want to replace the arrow, the suffering, the smoke, whatever it is that you want to replace that with, you don't breathe it out for just yourself and your family and your friends. You breathe it out for everyone. So that you cover the earth with your own dream of what is wonderful. Which would mean, in our case, if we're dealing with the beach, we would cover the planet with people all over being able to walk out of their doors, as they have done for so many hundreds and thousands of years, to a clean beach, to wonderful fishing, to great swimming. And that's what you wish for everyone. And this eventually begins to relieve your own suffering. Does that make sense to you? See?
So, I mean, the image of the beach and many, many years of people coming to it, and now, in some ways, it not being, being corrupted and changing, and the environment. One of the things I was curious about with this book is the way in which it defies, like, national borders. Or at least you're such a global citizen that, in terms of topics and countries, and people that you empathize with, it's such a terrain. But this is your first book.
That's because I didn't make the borders.
Yeah.
And I don't really respect them as something that's going to keep me separate. Sorry, but yeah.
I was thinking about the turn to, and we talked about this before, but that it's bilingual. And do you see this as your first clearly bilingual book? It's in English and Spanish. And so practically, I know you live in Mexico, or you have a house in Mexico, and so you can talk about that a little bit. But when I read about it being in Spanish, it was during the summer, and the intense crisis around children and parents being detained and separated. And so I thought, what a timely, you're always both ahead of time and on time, but I
Aquarians are like that.
Okay, there are. Okay. So why do this book in two languages?
Well.
And the Spanish and English being the two languages.
Okay, but then I do want to go back to Muhammad Ali and the changing of the title. I just got off on a tangent.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, you can go there. You can,
no.
Yeah.
Well, actually, since the early 80s, I've lived in Mexico as much as I can. And that usually means a few months out of the year. And I have really good friends there. And I have, grandchildren by, my friends. And people that I really love. However, because I'm constantly writing in English and rather long things in English, even though I have the best intentions, my Spanish study just falters, which means that and I can get around, but my Spanish is actually poor. It's really poor, and I'm very aware of it. So that when my friends often say to me, well, Alicia, what do you really do? I mean, what are you doing? Why are you writing in that book? And I felt the need to, especially on my blog, because more people relate to, blogs and the internet and a computer. I felt the need to have my work in Spanish so that my friends could know what I do. They, I'm a mystery. They may think I'm running something. And so, lucky for me, I met this incredible Cuban many, many years ago when I was in Cuba, and he has become my translator. And so it's wonderful how it works. I write, poems or whatever, and I send them to Manuel, and within 3 or 4 days, if he's not, if the computer situation there is sometimes very tricky. But when he can work on my what I send him, within days I can put it up in Spanish. And I just love that, and I feel like, just as my Spanish is not great, well, their English is not great. So we kind of, we're just working our way as as well as we can toward each other. And that is what I think we can do. I don't think we will all ever really have everybody else, you know, other people's stuff down totally. You know, we would like to. But that doesn't mean that we can't do what we can. And so, you know, I love the people that I love, you know, in countries where they speak Spanish. And I just want to be more known, you know. Yeah.
Muhammad Ali, the change in title.
Oh, yeah, about Muhammad Ali. Well, you know, the Long Road Home, and what's so amazing is that that's the name of your organization.
A Long Walk Home,
The Long Road Home. Is yours The Long Walk Home? The Long Walk Home. Yeah, mine is The Long Road Home. Basically, I wrote that for Muhammad Ali because he was so inspiring to me, not as a boxer, because actually I can't bear it when people are hitting each other in the ring. Anyway, but what I loved about him was that even though he beat up people for a living, when they tried to force him to fight against the Vietnamese people, he refused and went to jail. You know, he just said, well, come and just take me to jail. I'm not going to kill these people. Now, to me, that represents part of his long road home. You know, we get on a road home if we're lucky. If we're lucky. We get on that long road home. And what is that? What is that road? It's the road to the true self. So whatever you think of Muhammad Ali, and, you know, he had his sexist ways and his, you know, whatever. But when it came to what truly mattered at a time that really made a great deal of difference in the way our people could see who they had to remain, you know, people who don't just kill other people, you know, because somebody tells you. He did what was right, you know, and that is, you know, so inspiring because we hope that when our time comes, we can say, no, just take me to jail. You know, FEMA, just come get me. I won't do what you're asking. I will not. Because the long road home is to get you to who you really are, where you actually live. I mean, we can exist. That's what we do already, a lot of us. But to actually live, you know. So anyway, but then I went to Stanford, and they were talking about something else, and somehow I changed the title.
Well, so, I mean, 2015 and 2016, these are from those 2 years that all of us in this room have lived through. So I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of both writing poetry in response to those years and then blogging, right? You're doing these, and then I'm assuming you're still keeping journals. Are you still?
Well, a lot of my journal now is on my website.
Okay, so yep.
Because I felt all along that it was crazy to write something and then wait for it to be published a whole year. Because by year after year, who are you? You know? And with my memory, who knows? So now I love it. I love the immediacy of it. I like, you know, to just send things out on the air. It seems very natural to me.
I mean, so I think it's probably astonishing to a lot of people in the audience who've read much of your published work that the poetry itself is a urgent response, and then the blog is an even more immediate response for you. Is that do you see them as doing different things, or?
You know, it feels just very natural. I mean, in fact, you know, the problem is if I talk about something, then I probably won't write about it, but I'm going to talk about it anyway and just hope that I forget that I've talked about it. But you know, I've been having a lot of trouble with the pronoun situation, you know, the them, the her, the they. And I've been taking myself to task, you know, because I can't seem to quite get it right, you know, and I don't have many people to practice with. But I just read a poem from Split This Rock by someone who just in their poem made so much sense that I got it. I think for the first time I really understood. So this is a poet who refers to themselves as they, them, and their ancestry is Cherokee, white, oh God, 2 or 3 other things that I can't quite remember. But what really impacted me was that I looked at this person's, their face, and I could see exactly what they meant. And that, in a way, it was so right to figure out how to acknowledge all of those entities. In addition, transgender, femme, God, a lot. I mean, really, you'd have to look this up. But, you know, I really see now how liberating it can be to be able to, in language, acknowledge all of your parts. It's amazing. So I was thinking, you know, about myself, about how she, her, is fine, and that's what I'm going to stick with, because honestly, I don't know if I can get all of them, you know, together. But I do understand that if I truly wanted to acknowledge my possibly Nigerian, Ghanaian, Cherokee, Irish, Scottish, English ancestry, I would have to say they, wouldn't I? Doesn't that make sense? I mean, it's so clear. What was your question?
I think what you were answering was what poetry gives us. Because in that poem, you were able to see, the poem gave you the answer to something you were struggling with, right? It just was laid bare. And so my question to you was about the difference between your avid blogging and then your writing poetry. But I mean, I think you answered it, like what poetry.
Yeah, I just write the poems, and then if I feel like they are shareable, I put them on the blog. And like I wrote 2 poems for the audience here at the museum. I don't know if you're probably not the same audience, but I wonder if you saw them, because I went home after my last visit, and you'd have, well, I don't know, probably not you, but assume that it's you. And anyway, the audience had been so wonderful. I was so touched that I went home and I wrote these poems, and I dedicated them to you, and I put them right on my blog so you could see them right away. And that, it felt really good, because that also is what poetry does. It makes you feel really good, even when it's sad. Because you're able to add to the, you know, imagined discussion what it is that you see. And it's like everything, it's an offering, you know.
So is it different for you than writing, because you have so many forms, so short stories, essays, novels, blogging, poetry, you wrote a screenplay. So are they all different experience? I mean, are you trying to do something different with the different genres? Or I know the way you talk about writing, it's a calling, it kind of comes to you. But do you actually think of the genres as doing different things, or are they all?
Yeah, well, you have to. If you're writing a screenplay, for instance, you know, they want a screenplay. They don't want, you know, a book of poems. They can hardly handle the screenplay. Yeah, I feel just so incredibly grateful when the inspiration happens. That it's like being given this wonderful understanding of something, or this wonderful flowering of a dream, or just a wish to be able to praise something, for instance. I mean, I've written many poems just in praise of the wonder of, where we are, wherever this is, I mean, just the magic of being humans here on this planet, and not having much of a clue how we got here, going to church and hearing these tales, but really, they start to wear thin. And then you're left with, the true mystery of it, which I think is preferable. Just be in the mystery of how amazing it is. It's not going to be solved in our lifetime about, how it happened. So we might as well just really enjoy, those trees out there, that park. I love Prospect Park. It's just beautiful.
So in your note about the translator, Manuel Garcia Verdesia, you talk about that moment when you realized that you and 8 or other so beings were soulmates. And then you said something that was really profound. I mean, many things are profound, but this really stood with me. So you said, there was a luminosity to the moment that went straight to my heart and soul. None of us could imagine how many defeats lay ahead of us. To their revolution, to my success as a mother and as an artist, attempting to bring light. But we knew we were the ones offering ourselves to the journey, the task of trusting each other as companions on the way. And so one thing to open the book with this, even though the book is a reflection and a meditation on 2015 and 2016, it also is a retrospective in many ways, with your homage to Muhammad Ali or to B.B. King, to Julian Bond, to many, many souls or spirits, and also to the civil rights movement itself. You have 3 dedications. One is to Coretta Scott, and Martin Luther King looms large in this pretty consistently.
Yes.
And so I was just wondering if you could talk about that movement back and forth between our fierce present, but then also going back, and either those figures have passed away, and so we have to conjure them up in the present, or you're summoning their energy for us in the present, I guess.
Well, I'm concerned that we not forget. We are people who have been so fiercely loved. We have been so loved, and it would be tragic if we forgot. I feel so fortunate to have been with people who, just offered themselves. We never knew, they never knew what the end would be. That song, I'm going to run on a long time, see what the end will be. Well, that's how people were. And if we forget that we've been loved so much, we will start to value ourselves less. And that would be really tragic. In fact, I was thinking, before we came up here, about how Black people are so lovable, and my understanding of, that was, very strong, especially in my younger years in high school. But I can see that feeling has been eroded as people have felt less and less lovable and less loved. So it's important to remind us, by going back to these Julian Bond, Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, all the people you think you know, but actually you just know the shadow. You know a little image that they put out there. They've even moved the people's birthdays, which is a terrible thing to do. And I mean that. You really should not celebrate people's birthdays on days that are not actually their birthdays. It really destroys the energy. It's a fracture. So, I just, in writing these poems, I want to bring back to mind, or for some people for the first time, that you've been loved by people who never knew you. They just knew, that you were coming. That's all they knew. They didn't know you. They said, oh no, they're gonna come, and we got to prepare. And that's what they were doing. They were preparing a day for you that they didn't even think they'd see. So it's so humbling when you see your people like that.
So speaking of not knowing that you're loved, you have a poem here called "Is Celie Actually Ugly?" Mm-hmm. And I know when you and I talked, you were like, "What else is there to say about the color purple?" But then here it is. So, and you dedicate it to Cynthia Erivo. So I was wondering, you say it's a question that people either ask you or ask characters who play her, or the character Celie. And so I was wondering why you felt like you wanted to, why did you include that here?
Well, okay, I know. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Well, the last Celie on Broadway was actually from London, and she was excellent. And one day she actually just said to me, well, is she really ugly? Because I think if you're a smash on Broadway and the image that people are set up to have is that you're ugly, it is bound to weigh on you. I mean, you may be the strongest actor in the world, but if every time you come out, you feel like people expect you to be ugly, it's very harmful to you. So I wrote this poem to help her understand how I was, also trying to help us understand beauty itself, but in a more prosaic way. What's really amazing about readers of the book and viewers of the film, but especially readers of the book, is that even though Pa, who is a rapist and a terrible being, a horrible person, never tells the truth about anything, he is still believed by readers, even though in the book itself she is saying, for instance, I am 14 years old. Then when Pa is trying to get rid of her by marrying her off, Mr. says, well, how old is she? And Pa says she's near 20. Now, what I'm showing you is that people believe basically what they want to believe, but in this case, they believe that she's ugly, but also that she has been abused in ways that would make you ugly. So if you are basically a slave to a horrible person who is sexually molesting you and abusing you for years, and you have to take care of his very terrible children, and do all the cooking and a lot of the plowing, you would look very different from your sister who manages with your help to escape. So what happens though is that Celie's beauty develops as she becomes aware of her own beauty, which she does through the grace and the beauty of another sister, another woman, which is a gift that we can give to each other. I mean, we know that so many people that are considered, quote, ugly, are really beautiful. Why don't we tell them? Why don't we just tell them, just out of nowhere? I mean, they can be upset or whatever, but you just tell them and then walk away. Well, gosh, you're beautiful, Now, it will take a while for them to internalize this, but it's a lot better than having them feel like because they don't look like somebody on TV, joy and happiness and good fortune passed them by. It didn't.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So if you have, okay, okay, well, I will repeat exactly what she just said. Thank you, June. You all have questions, so you have cards that you're supposed to put questions on, and so we're going to collect them, and we'll pick a few to ask Alice soon. But if you can make sure that you put your questions on the cards that you got when you entered the auditorium, that'd be great. So we'll collect them, and then we'll choose from them. So you have two poems that are kind of related to each other, I think. They will always be more beautiful than you, and then The Lesson.
And I don't know if you want to read from either of those, but well, sorry. you know the poem I really want to read, but I forget which page, and I've lost my reading.
Well, tell me I can find it.
Huh?
But tell me what the poem, I'll look for it for you.
Okay. It's Sweet People Are Everywhere.
Oh.
But I can do that after.
Well, okay.
Oh yeah, I think it's 193 actually. Yeah. Okay.
193 was that.
But I'd like to read it after the other two, or after the other one, whichever you want me to do, one or two.
I mean, it's up to you, really. They will always be more beautiful than you.
Let's read that one.
Follows the Seeley thing, but the lesson is so. I love the lesson.
Okay. Well, the lesson is short, so I can do maybe that one.
What page? I just have the lesson.
But I do want to read the one, They Will Always Be More Beautiful Than You, because this is a medicine poem. It's a medicine poem for us, especially indigenous people everywhere, because, we've suffered so horribly from people who have come to tell us how ugly we are, when just think about what they look like. And I mean, no, seriously. I mean, here they came in 100-degree weather wearing these metal suits. I mean, just really, and they didn't believe in hygiene. And there we were for the most part, swimming in the ocean. Anyway, so it's about, looking at the hatred that we face really realistically. As we now can look at Trump and see his treatment of Obama for what it is. Isn't that helpful? If we don't get anything else out of this, and we might not, it's a lesson there that is really, really good to have, and really just, just keep it there. Just understand that, what's going on there. They will always be more beautiful than you. And many of these poems are about Palestine, and I was in Palestine. You wouldn't believe what it's like. I mean, nothing could prepare you for it. And then another time I was trying to get there, and they wouldn't let the boat go. That was trying. But in any case, they will always be more beautiful than you, no matter what. They will always be more beautiful than you, the people you are killing. You think it is hatred that you feel, but it is really envy. You imagine if you destroy them, we will forget how tall they stood, how level their gaze, how straight their backs, how even the littlest ones stood their little ground. Meanwhile, you stand hunched as a cobbler in your absurd killer's gear, yelling like a crazy person, your face contorted, dripping sweat from what would be with or without your lethal weapons, a bullying brow and feral chin. Killing everyone, but especially children, for sport. Looking cool in your own mind as you crunch bones beneath your boot that are still forming. Conquering. Don't forget the entertainment value of your daily work for the folks back home who witness from the hillsides in their lounge chairs. What beautiful fun. We are not like those people being broken over there, they tell each other. And for this moment, they are right. They're not. But what does this mean? What does this mean for broken humanity? Selfie this. This is called Sweet People Are Everywhere. And this was written for a young friend who'd just gotten his first passport. Some of the people in Turkey are very sweet. Some of those in Afghanistan are very sweet. Some of the people in the Americas are very sweet. In Canada, too, some of the people are sweet. In Mexico, you will definitely find sweet people. Likewise, in the Sudan, there are sweet people among the Zulu in South Africa, and every language group in Africa has some sweet people in it. There are sweet people in Iceland and in Russia. There are many sweet people in Korea. There are millions of sweet people in China. There are sweet people in Japan. If the sweet people were the leaders in these historically warring Asian countries, they would treat each other much better. There are sweet people in the Congo. There are sweet people in Egypt. And sweet people in Australia. Many sweet people are in Norway. Numerous sweet people are in Spain. There are many sweet people in Ghana and Kenya, and sweet people also in Guam in the Philippines. There are sweet people in Cuba, many sweet people in Iran. There are sweet people in Libya and Colombia. Sweet people are in Vietnam. Sweet people exist in England and Burma. There are sweet people for sure in Ireland. Sweet people are in France. Sweet people are holding on in Syria. They're doing the same in Iraq. Some sweet people live in Venezuela. Many very sweet people live in Brazil. There are sweet people in Israel. And there are sweet people also in Palestine. Actually, in almost every house on the planet, there is at least one very sweet person that you would be happy to know. Sweet people are everywhere. Being sweet, they must not be disappeared. We are lost if we can no longer experience how sweet human beings can be. Promise me never to forget this, no matter how far you go on this new passport, where you are directed to land your own sweet self, or who sends you.
So the poem, I Believe the Women, which we talked about before, but we talked about it before two things happened, before Bill Cosby was sentenced, and before the Kavanaugh hearings and Dr. Ford had testified. And so I said to you then, and I'll say it now, in your work, you always believe the women, meaning that you've highlighted or spotlighted or told, you're one of the pioneers, at least for my generation, of breaking silences around sexual assault and domestic or gender-based violence and interpersonal violence. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this poem in this, 3 weeks later, and also in this moment of Me Too, because I think you both offer us a kind of, this book in general offers us both a diagnosis of our condition and also a way through it. And I don't know if you want to read this poem or just talk about it, but, what were you wrote this, I guess, as the Me Too movement was gaining steam. What prompted I Believe the Women?
All the stuff on television about Bill Cosby and all these women that he drugged and molested. And the people who were saying that they made it up. And at the same time, the people who had no compassion at all for him. I have to say, and I do somewhere lately, I'm concerned when we, there's something we have to really think about, which is we can believe, stories of brutality, atrocity, violence and they're often very true. However, it's damaging to us if we cannot feel compassion for the person who's done the violence and the damage. So we just think about it that way. So for me, I feel compassion for Bill. And I think compassion is a feeling you really can't go wrong with. It's not like you're trying to, liberate him or free him or anything. What you're basically trying to do is liberate your own heart, because it just doesn't help us, really, to ever close down on people. So that's part of it. And I was saying, too, in that poem, but there's a later poem, but in this poem I'm talking about how in our culture, and in many cultures, little boys, by the time they're 5, have to be so confused about what it is to be a man and what they're supposed to be doing. In this context, I want to recommend a book called Perfect Peace by Daniel Black. And in this book, set in the South, it's a black family, and these people have had 7 boys. The woman, they'd had 7 boy children, one after the other. And she just says, I'm sick of having boy babies. And the next one that comes, she turns into a girl. And she dresses and names her Perfect. And she, dresses her like a girl, and she, goes through the whole thing. And eventually, of course, she's discovered. But what we learn is so many things about, the gender issues that children grow up with, and how confused they can be, and how damaged. So just as I felt that my own grandparents, who are the basis of some of the rotten men in purple, just as they were damaged in different ways, and, it took a granddaughter to come so much toward the end of their lives to see the parts that they had tried to kill off in order to be men, I mean, I got to see them, I got to see the feminine in a way of my grandparents, grandfathers. I mean, where they were not trying to protect some weird thing. So that's kind of some of that,
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to turn it, I'm going to pull from the questions from the audience. So so this is also a call to action. I don't know if you would like to do the call to action after we go through this list of questions, but my final question will be, what is the call to action that you would like what would you like us to do in terms of the healing that you propose here, or just the political realities that we're in that you so beautifully really tackle and wrestle with and present to us in this book. So do you want to answer that now, or you can meditate on it until I go through
Well, I'm happy you mentioned meditation.
Okay.
Because I really feel, again, that when I think about the civil rights movement, for instance, now it's true that in the South, the meditation state was accomplished in some of our churches. I mean, if you ever think about the calm and the assurance of the soldiers of the civil rights movement, I mean, the warriors, a lot of that actually came out of our tradition of having a meeting place. A meeting place is pretty important. And that meeting place was our church, and the singing in the church, and the possibility, of being yourself, being loved, being surrounded by people who truly, they didn't come in there to do anything but support you in whatever, we were about to get into. So that is very essential, to find a circle. That is something that I really recommend. In my own case, one day my women friends and I decided that we need to have women's council. And I mean, you may want to have, men and women, but at that point we felt like we had to be women. And we just basically picked up the phone and called 11 women that we knew. And most of them came and came for the next 10 years. So, you know, it's valuable to have a structure, but not one where you have an agenda exactly. One of the things that we decided was that we would never come into the circle with an agenda, that we would trust that whatever was the deepest need would arise, that subject would arise automatically, and it always did. I mean, it's one of the things I think that can happen, especially with women, maybe with other people too. So I would recommend that, a lot of sitting, a lot of getting to know who you really are, you know, because the other part of activism is knowing what you're willing to give up. You know, are you ready to give it all up? You may have to. And if you're not ready, you know, it has to be a mess. And you don't want to leave here with your soul in a mess. Really.
So I think I could agree to this question profoundly, because my sister and I did not want to leave. I mean, I wanted to go back to my kids and my partner, so I did. That's true, but I did not want to leave your presence because you were so. Well, the question here is, how do you?
Because I loved you. That's why you didn't want to leave.
But this peacefulness. So this question here is, but how do you maintain the serenity that you're projecting to us? It's soothing after the nightmare of this past year. And I guess that's what I mean, like, you just emit so much goodness and serenity and love. And so how do you maintain that, I guess? How do you, you're a true empath. And I know I said this to you when I was leaving, that there's a Steven Spielberg quote about you, that you're otherworldly. And what I realized is, like, Alice is so worldly. Like, she's so like a plant dying is going to really, an animal, like, everything you take in and you feel it so profoundly. So how do you, and I guess to this question, how do you stay so still?
You know, I think it's love, actually. I mean, it seems trite, but I really do. I think it is, and I think I remember when I was little, I was really so little, and I would feel so much love that I actually thought I would burst. And so I figured I had to be really calm. I would just be really calm, you know. Oh, don't let them know. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I mean, first of all, it's just a wonder, this whole situation that we're somehow in. And we're so, in a way, immune to the magic of it, which is so, you know, I couldn't live that way. I need to be, you know, where I can, you know, we're doing my journals next, and at the last page, the editor left so far, they're cutting all kinds of stuff, but maybe they won't cut this. I was in Hawaii, and I was feeling, you know, how you get, you know, where you're just like, oh God, you know. And I felt that the wind had come up outside the window, and I went to the window, and I looked out into a mango tree, and there was a little nest of leaves, just a little nest of leaves, and they were just doing like that, and I was, you know, intrigued. And then I realized that actually it was speaking to me. And what it was saying was, oh, stop muttering about. Get on with it. It's gonna be okay. And I realized that I had been telling the trees to give me more mangoes. I had been going out there every morning with my little bucket. And they wouldn't, you know, well, one tree was a male, so it didn't have any. I mean, even though I knocked, you know, but the other one I would say, you know, mangoes before I have to go home, you know. So the world that I live in is aware that the trees are constantly communicating. Now, they will figure this out later, probably. And I'm sure indigenous people have always known this, that they are communicating, and that in the same way that they communicate to each other, that they all also communicate to us, but we have to be really open to it. you know? So I don't know, you know, was that in part of your question?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was whatever question was asked. You're a prolific voice, writer, womanist, a light source. What was it like in the beginning, finding and standing in your voice? Did you believe you'd be who you are now?
It was terrible sometimes. I was so suicidal. Oh, no, I mean, I have been down there, you know, really far. But I'm not now, you know, and that's good. And also, yeah, thank you. But that's what you learn. You learn that as you go along, and it's a good thing to know. In fact, when I hear of all the suicides, you know, my one hope and wish is that somebody had just been close enough to say, wait until tomorrow. You know, just hold on one more day and see what happens.
This idea of knowing who you are now, though, being in your archives, like, I don't know if you knew you were going to be Alice Walker, but you kept everything. I mean, you kept it like you knew someone was going to go through your archives eventually. So so this is just me adding to that question. Like, why did you know that, you know what I mean? Like, there was some, and Beverly and I talked about this, and Valerie and I talked about this, like, did you know you were going to be who you are in that way? It's different than, no, you didn't know. You just kept everything.
No. What I knew was that I have a responsibility to the people coming after me. And if I can be helpful by leaving a map, that's what I'll do.
Okay, so this is a two-part question, and then we have one more after this. So part one, do you have any writing rituals that you do before and after you write? And part two, are there any self-care rituals that you do before or after writing about trauma? And this is from a budding novelist.
I think the writing is the therapy. I think the writing is the healing. And I think it's the joy, and it's the magic. Because there is just something so remarkable about the process of writing out of nothing. I mean, where does it come from? You know, I mean, it's true that you can, you know, write a story based on whatever, or you can write a feature about something you actually experienced, but at another level, it's a kind of magic. And that is what I like. And to the extent that there is trauma, it's healing. You know, I find that, you know, I heal myself all the time through my work, you know. I mean, it's so wonderful to write something and then put on just some wonderful rocking music and just dance, you know, until I just feel completely free and silly and, you know, just fine. And dance, I think, is the closest I feel to what writing is.
The last question, Alice, we love you. I love you, but this person loves you as well. And their question is, you fill your skin with water, strength, and sweetness. What would you say to guide the next generation to find their way to their contribution?
Well, you know, I worry about our youth not knowing their own beauty. And I worry about them not appreciating, you know, who they are and what has gone before them to hold them. I mean, we've been holding these children. I mean, we've been, you know, it wasn't like, you know, just going out there for yourself and trying to vote with people who are shooting at you, you know, really. And at that time, I must tell you, and you know this, there was, you know, more of an innocence about voting and our political situation. We have to all vote now, though. But it still doesn't mean we have to believe in the system. And I would really like, to make that very much my contribution. That this will have to be a strategic vote, and maybe there'll be many of those to come, but you can no longer rest at all after voting for anybody. Just forget about it. There is no, one of the problems that we have had is that we, get a few, nuggets of freedom, quote, and we just party. It's the truth. And, then they, the Republicans, for instance, never sleep. Those people don't sleep. I mean, look at them, they don't. But we do. And we, somehow we have really thought that, freedom, once you get some, that's it, and everything is going to be fine. It is never like that. It has never been like that. It never will be like that. So, vote strategically when you have to, but never believe in it, that it's going to be the cure. It's not.
So I guess that's the end of our time here.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was beautiful. You're beautiful.
So are you.